Let's start right here with this fan literally recording this lady spitting on her. All right. And as you can see, the title, this Seattle Storm fan just spit in my face because the Fever won. Holy.
That is the moment that changed the whole conversation. Not the final score, not the box score, not the basketball. A fan says she was spit on after the Fever won, and suddenly the story is not just what happened inside the lines. It is what the league is willing to condemn, what it is willing to ignore, and who gets blamed before the evidence is even discussed.
I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to call the cops. All right? This is what you're supposed to do when something goes down in a crowd. For all the ones throwing around the allegations about the Indiana Fever saying racist stuff and, being nasty towards you, this is what you're supposed to do. All right? Record and then get the police involved. That's how you handle it. Stop trying to just bring out nonsense and just say, hey, WNBA, y'all need to handle this. No, this is how you handle it. All right? Get some evidence and get the cops involved.
Pay attention to the difference here. The woman in that clip does not just run to social media with a vague accusation and demand that the entire league answer for it. She records, she points to the person she says did it. She says she is going to call the police. That matters, because this is exactly where the WNBA conversation has been broken all season. When something ugly is alleged, the first question should be simple. What happened? Is there evidence? Who was involved? Did arena security respond? Did anyone file a report? But too many times the league conversation skips all of that and jumps straight to the narrative that already fits somebody's side. And that is why this clip hits differently, because if the allegation is true, this is not just rude fan behavior. Spitting on somebody is not normal heckling. That is not booing. That is not trash talk. That is crossing a physical line. And when the league spends so much time telling fans there is no space for hate, no space for harassment, no space for hostility, then the standard cannot only activate when the accused fan base is the one people already want to attack. But the part that should bother you most comes later, because while this video is spreading, another conversation is being forced onto the players at the exact same time. And that is where this goes from one ugly crowd incident to a bigger question about media, politics, and who is allowed to just play basketball.
No, excuse me, I want to stay with that. Oh no, she just spit in my face. I have it on camera. What? Let it go? You spit in my face? Let it go. You think I should let it in my face? Let it go.
Now look at how chaotic that scene feels. People are turning around, somebody is yelling that they have it on camera, others are trying to move through the crowd, and the accused woman appears to just keep walking up the stairs like nothing happened. That image is what makes fans angry. Because in any arena, especially after a heated game, emotions run high. You can have boos, you can have signs, you can have chants, you can have opposing jerseys in the same section. That is sports. But once a fan says somebody spit on them, the situation is supposed to become bigger than rivalry. The arena should want to know, security should want to know, the team should want to know, the league should want to know, not because every online accusation is automatically proven, but because a physical allegation with video attached deserves an actual response. And here is the standard people are pointing at. When Fever fans have been accused of being hostile, hateful, or out of line, those stories do not stay small for long. They become league-wide talking points, they become media segments, they become statements. They become evidence in a much bigger argument about what kind of fan base Caitlin Clark brought into the WNBA. So if that is the standard, then the same energy has to go the other way. If a Seattle fan allegedly spits on a Fever fan, it cannot be treated like a side issue just because it does not fit the preferred script. Either fan behavior matters everywhere, or it is only being used as a weapon when it helps a certain narrative.
Now, as this lady right here, I know it's hard for y'all to see. I'm so sorry. It's small. I can't make it bigger. But it's this lady right here. And the fact that she's just chilling, just walking up the stairs like nothing just happened is ridiculous, man. I mean, this environment was all out disgusting. Looking at what was going on. All right. So this is the first thing. Ladies spitting in Indiana Fever fans' face. I haven't seen any footage of a Fever fan doing anything like that. Man. Hey, WNBA, let's send out another report. I don't think the fans got it. I don't think they understand the no hate, no space for hate, whatever y'all was pushing. I don't think they understand it. All right, so let's send out another letter and make sure that these other fan bases get what y'all are putting down, because the FIBA fans aren't doing this. I didn't see any video of them spitting on people. Like, this is crazy work, man.
This is where the frustration turns into a double standard argument. The host is basically saying, if the WNBA is serious about fan conduct, then be serious about all of it. Not just the incidents that make FIBA fans look bad. Not just the stories that can be tied back to Caitlin Clark's popularity. Not just the moments that cable shows want to debate. And whether you agree with every word of that reaction or not, the underlying question is fair. What is the rule? Is the league policing fan hostility as a real safety issue, or is it policing certain narratives? Because the WNBA has a unique problem right now. It finally has massive attention. It has new fans, bigger crowds, more national debate, more ticket demand, more social media traffic, and more people watching every little moment. But attention exposes everything. It exposes great basketball. It exposes poor officiating. It exposes media agendas. It exposes security failures. It exposes fans who cannot handle losing. And it exposes whether league leadership is prepared to be consistent. That is the uncomfortable part. Growth does not just mean more cameras when things go well. Growth means every incident has a receipt. Every silence gets compared to the last statement. Every selective outrage becomes part of the story. And after this, the conversation pivots from fan conduct to signs in the building, because the same game also had a fight over what messages are allowed in the arena and which messages apparently get treated as a problem.
Now, another thing that was going on in this environment was a full-out protest after Sophie Cunningham came out and I guess basically just said, hey, men don't belong in women's sports. Which, I mean, I agree with. Why are we trying to put men in women's sports? That doesn't make sense. But as you can see, there was this sign right here saying, thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls, right? Cool. Then you had this sign saying, I guess, no hate in these United States. I guess this sign is supposed to be going against what Sophie was saying. They ended up collecting this woman's sign and leaving this woman's sign alone. Now, I remember going to the game and they were saying, you know, your sign had to be a specific size, but that size looked perfectly fine. That looked perfectly fine. I remember seeing signs that size when I went to the game, so I don't know why they confiscated it. Why you confiscate hers, but you allowed this other sign to be over here?
Now the sign controversy is where the arena becomes a mirror for the league's bigger culture war. One fan holds a sign thanking Sophie Cunningham for speaking up for girls. Another sign says no hate in these United States. According to the host, one sign was taken and the other was allowed to stay. That is not just a random arena policy debate, that is why people start asking what the rules actually are. If signs are restricted by size, enforce the size rule. If political signs are banned, enforce that rule both ways. If the arena wants no targeted messages, say that clearly and apply it evenly. But once fans believe one viewpoint is being removed while an opposing viewpoint stays up, the argument becomes bigger than the sign itself. And the reason Sophie Cunningham is at the center of it is because her comments had already become a flashpoint. She had been criticized for her position on women's sports, and supporters framed her as saying what many people are afraid to say publicly. Critics framed it as anti-trans. So by the time fans show up with signs, this is no longer just a basketball game. It is a live pressure test for what the league tolerates, what the building allows, and which side gets the benefit of the doubt. This is the early middle danger zone for a video like this. It would be easy to just say, fans argued, signs got removed, people were mad. But that misses the bigger point. The actual tension is about trust. When fans trust the rules, they might not like them, but they understand them. When fans think the rules change based on the message, then every staff decision looks political. And that is exactly the opening reporters needed to turn a regular post-game press conference into something else entirely.
Talking about how, you know, political stances aren't allowed in the arena. But here we are, man. You can see this sign over here saying no hate in these United States. And they know what she's hitting towards. They know what she's talking about. So the fact that you took the Sophie sign and leaving this sign, man, that says a lot. I'm just saying, that says a lot. That says a lot, man. Come on, man. What are we doing? What are we promoting here? What are we promoting? I think women's sports should be left alone, dog. I'm just saying. Let the women have their space. You want a whole nother league? Do that. But leave the women's space alone, dog. I don't know what you're promoting here, but that's nonsense. And I'm so sick of this reporter right here, dog.
That is the pivot. The host stops talking about only the fan incident and starts talking about the media environment around the team. Because in his view, the problem is not just what happened in the stands. It is who decides which stories become official WNBA controversies and which ones disappear. This is where the name Roberta enters the script. According to the host, she is a Seattle Storm reporter he has already criticized earlier in the season, especially after she allegedly referred to Caitlin Clark as a teenage boy. That history matters because it explains why he does not see the next question as neutral journalism. He sees it as part of a pattern. And this is also where the story gets delicate. Reporters are allowed to ask uncomfortable questions. Players and coaches are public figures inside a major sports league. If there is a protest outside the arena connected to a player's comments, a journalist can ask about it. That is part of the job. But there is a difference between asking a clean question and building a trap. A clean question gives the subject room to answer. A trap question smuggles in conclusions, labels the event in the most loaded way possible, and tries to force a player or coach into a political headline. That is what critics heard here. They did not hear, did the team discuss the protest? They heard, will you condemn your teammate, distance yourself from your fans, and validate my framing of what happened? And once the question is asked that way, it is no longer only about Sophie. It becomes about Caitlin Clark, the Fever locker room, and whether the biggest name in the league can be pulled into every non-basketball fight around her.
Coach, there was a rally before the game, an anti-trans rally before the game, inspired by Sophie Cunningham. As a member of the LGBTQ plus community, how did you receive her comments and the way it ignited the right-wing and anti-trans supporters? And for the players, have you had conversations in the locker room about it?
I'll jump in on that. We do have an organizational statement. I'll read. So neither our organization nor Sophie had any knowledge of this demonstration and no contact with its organizers. Our only goal as a team, whether at home or away, is to win basketball games and make Fever fans for life, and we're united on that mission. Do you have any more basketball questions?
That answer from the Fever side was tight, controlled, and very intentional. They said neither the organization nor Sophie had knowledge of the demonstration or contact with its organizers. They said their goal is to win basketball games and make Fever fans' lives better. Then they asked for basketball questions. That is not an accident. That is damage control. That is a team refusing to let the press conference become a political hearing. And notice what the question did. It described the rally as anti-trans. It said it was inspired by Sophie Cunningham. It asked a coach who is part of the LGBTQ plus community how she received the comments and the way they ignited right-wing and anti-trans supporters. That is a lot of framing packed into one question. The most important word there is inspired, because that word does work. It connects Sophie to people outside the arena without proving she organized anything, contacted anybody, encouraged anybody, or even knew the protest was happening. The Fever statement directly tried to cut that connection. No knowledge, no contact, basketball mission. That is the moment the title's real answer starts to show itself, but it is not fully paid off yet. The issue is not simply that a reporter asked about a protest. The issue is that the WNBA is becoming a place where Caitlin Clark, her teammates, and even opposing fan incidents are constantly filtered through a political lens before the basketball is allowed to breathe. And for the viewer, that creates a choice. Do you believe these questions are necessary accountability? Or do you believe they are an attempt to drag the league's biggest draw into controversies that are not actually hers? That tension gets even sharper when the reporter explains who she wanted to ask and why.
Man, she got fly swatted, man. Get that crazy question out of here. And the way she's trying to tie Sophie into that anti-trans rally, it's nonsense. Oh, it's inspired by her. What? So Sophie Cunningham literally said, hey, y'all go out and rally in front of the arena. What are we talking about, man? This is the nonsense that I'm talking about with this reporter right here. Now, if that didn't make you upset or disgusted of this woman already, let's continue to see what she said on X, right? Let's see what she said right here. Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham were not made available for non-basketball questions post-game. Clark was listed as one of the Fever players for the postseason press conference, but was replaced by Kelsey Mitchell despite being the highest scorer and assist leader on the team. Right? Trying to make it seem like, oh yeah, they're ducking me.
This is where the host gets animated because the post-game story becomes about availability. Roberta says Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham were not made available for non-basketball questions. Clark, according to the post shown in the video, had apparently been listed for the post-game press conference and then was replaced by Kelsey Mitchell, even though Clark was the highest scorer and assist leader on the team. Now, there are two ways to read that. The reporter's side is obvious. If the most influential player has a connection to the teammate at the center of the debate, and if that player had a major game, then her absence looks like avoidance. From that perspective, asking why she was not available is fair. But the team's side is just as obvious. If the press conference is about basketball, and the only reason a reporter wants Caitlin Clark is to ask her to comment on a protest she did not organize, about comments she did not make, involving a teammate's position she does not control, then the organization has every reason to protect her from becoming the headline. That is the part people miss. Availability is not just logistics, it is strategy. Teams know one quote from Caitlin Clark can hijack a news cycle for days. They know one awkward answer can be framed as silence, disagreement, support, cowardice, courage, betrayal, or controversy depending on who posts it first. And when the league's biggest attention engine is also the easiest person to turn into a culture war headline, every media appearance becomes a risk calculation. So was she ducking the question? Maybe. Was the team trying to keep the focus on basketball? Also maybe. But the deeper issue is why a player who just played a basketball game is being treated like the spokesperson for every debate happening outside the arena.
Let's just look at what she stated right here. All right, that would be my direct question to Caitlin Clark, but she was not made available. I'm making the question public. This is a screenshot from my notes app, and she's welcome to answer if she wants to. She's not answering you, man. She's not answering.
That screenshot is the escalation. This would be my direct question to Caitlin Clark, but she was not made available. Then the reporter says she is making the question public, and Clark is welcome to answer. That move is powerful because it turns a question that was not answered in the room into a public challenge. It says, "You avoided me there, so now I am asking you in front of everybody." And that is exactly why Clark's supporters see it as pressure instead of journalism. Because once the question is public, silence becomes content. If Caitlin does not answer, people can say she refused. If she gives a careful answer, people can say she dodged. If she supports her teammate, she gets attacked by one side. If she distances herself, she creates a locker room headline. If she says she just wants to play basketball, even that becomes a statement. That is the trap of being the most famous player in a league that is still figuring out what it wants its media ecosystem to be. Caitlin Clark is valuable because she brings attention, but the same attention makes her useful to people who want their issue amplified. If you can attach your question to Caitlin, your question becomes national. If you can make Caitlin's silence part of the story, your story gets legs. And this is why the host keeps repeating that the game itself is disappearing. Clark could score, assist, break a franchise mark, draw a crowd, create highlights, and still the conversation gets pulled away from basketball. That is not sustainable if the league wants the new audience to stay for the sport, not just the drama around the sport.
What she said here. Caitlin Clark's stance on this situation is as important her Fever teammates. I asked Kelsey Mitchell and Mo Billings too. Clark is the most popular player on the team, friends with Cunningham and extremely influential. Her thoughts are more than relevant.
There it is. The reporter's argument is that Caitlin Clark's stance matters because she is the most popular player on the team, she is friends with Cunningham, and she is extremely influential. That is the cleanest version of the case for asking her. And to be fair, influence does come with scrutiny. In modern sports, stars do not only get asked about jump shots and turnovers, they get asked about league issues, teammate comments, social questions, business decisions, fan behavior, and sometimes politics. That is not new. LeBron gets asked. Megan Rapinoe got asked. Serena got asked. Steph gets asked. Superstar status changes the job. But there is still a boundary question. Are we asking Caitlin Clark because she actually has relevant knowledge, or are we asking her because her name makes the story bigger? Those are not the same thing. If the question is, did Sophie Cunningham coordinate with the protest? Caitlin Clark is probably not the source. If the question is, did the Fever locker room discuss it? A team spokesperson or coach can answer. If the question is, what does Sophie believe? Ask Sophie. But if the question is, can we force the most famous player in women's basketball to take a public position on a polarizing issue and then build content around the fallout? That is not really about information anymore. That is about leverage. This is the part that connects back to the fan incident. The league's attention economy seems selective. A fan allegedly spits on another fan, and the host expects silence from the big platforms. A controversial political question aimed at Caitlin, and suddenly everyone knows exactly whose answer is necessary. That contrast is the engine of the outrage. And whether you agree with the host's politics or not, the media mechanics are worth examining. Because once reporters start deciding that popularity alone makes a player responsible for every adjacent controversy, the biggest star becomes less like an athlete and more like a public defendant.
Then somebody asked the question that I'm asking. Like, why would you want to ask her that and not Sophie? Why would you want to ask her that? She had nothing to do with that. And then here she comes, because we already know what Sophie Cunningham thinks very loud and clear. I wouldn't dare give her a platform to repeat what she thinks. Now, she could have stood on business and addressed the media, but she was not available for non-basketball questions.
That exchange exposes the contradiction critics are focused on. Someone asks why not direct the question to Sophie Cunningham. The response, according to the post shown in the video, is that we already know what Sophie thinks, and the reporter would not give her a platform to repeat it. That is a revealing answer. Because if the point is journalism, you normally ask the person at the center of the controversy. You challenge them, you press them, you let the audience hear the answer and judge it. But if the point is to avoid giving Sophie a platform while still demanding Caitlin answer for Sophie-adjacent fallout, then the target shifts, and that is why the host says he is sick of it. He sees it as a game where the person who made the comments is too controversial to platform, but the person who did not make the comments is famous enough to pressure. There is also a locker room angle here. Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are teammates. In a long season, teammates do not need every disagreement, every friendship, every political difference, and every off-court comment turned into a loyalty test. Teams survive because players can share a court without being forced to publicly litigate every issue attached to each other. If the Fever are smart, they know that. They know the league is physical. They know Clark already gets hit, guarded, debated, mocked, praised, blamed, defended, and turned into a symbol almost every week. They also know the locker room cannot function if every press availability becomes a chance to split the team into factions. So the decision to keep non-basketball questions away from certain players is not just public relations. It may be self-preservation. It may be the team saying, we are not letting our season become a panel debate every night. And that is where the story starts turning toward the league office, because if media credentials are part of the problem, somebody eventually has to decide what kind of coverage the WNBA actually wants.
Shout out to Ken Swift, man, my dog. I got a lot of this from Ken Swift. So let's listen to this, right? I've heard through the grapevine there have been some real discussions on the WNBA revamping who actually is credentialed to cover the league. Previously, they basically let anyone do it because they needed the coverage. That's not the case anymore. Some of the credentialed media is embarrassing the league on a daily basis, and they are taking note.
This is the late reveal the video has been building toward. According to the post read in the clip, there is talk through the grapevine that the league may be looking more closely at who is credentialed to cover it. The claim is not presented as an official WNBA announcement. It is a grapevine report, so treat it as unconfirmed. But the idea behind it is huge. For years, the WNBA needed coverage. Any league trying to grow wants more reporters, more podcasts, more writers, more clips, more attention. When you are fighting for visibility, you tolerate a messy media environment because silence is worse. But the league is not in that same position anymore. Caitlin Clark changed the scale. The Fever changed the crowds. National debate changed the incentives. Now coverage is not scarce. Attention is everywhere, and once attention is everywhere, quality control becomes a real issue. Credentialed media are not just random fans with phones. They get access to coaches and players. They help set the post-game narrative. They can ask questions that create headlines. They can pressure teams. They can frame controversies. They can embarrass the league if they treat the platform like a personal crusade instead of professional coverage. That is why this rumor, if it is accurate, matters. The league may finally be realizing that growth requires standards. Not censorship, not protecting players from all tough questions. Standards, questions should be tough, but they should be relevant. Accountability should be real, but it should be consistent. Reporters should be allowed to challenge people, but they should not turn every game into a hunt for a viral political confrontation. And this is also where the WNBA has to be careful. If it tightens credentials only against people asking questions the league dislikes, it will create a new scandal. But if it sets clear professional expectations for everyone, then it can raise the level of coverage without looking like it is punishing viewpoints. That is the real fork in the road. The WNBA can become a serious major sports league with serious standards, or it can remain a daily circus where the loudest off-court fight eats the basketball alive.
Because they are the main ones saying, we're sucking the life out of the WNBA. It was fun conversations before we came. They were talking about everything else besides Caitlin before we came. Right, L. Duncan? These are the extra stories y'all used to talk about, the fun stories, huh? These are the fun stories y'all had. Man, ridiculous, man. Get rid of all of them. Nah, but real spill, I need every analyst, every reporter. I need ESPN. I need everybody. The WNBPA, I need everybody involved. The WNBA, I need everybody involved with that Storm fan spitting on that Fever fan. I need y'all involved. I need y'all saying something. I need you posting something. I need a letter. I need something going on, man. Because let that have been a Fever fan spitting on a Storm fan, all of y'all would have been active. Ooh, it would have been a crazy campaign going on right now. Oh, it would have been disgusting work. Oh, these Fever fans are ridiculous. Look at them spitting on people. I'm talking about every fan base would have been saying something about it. No, I need everybody talking about this, man. Y'all let me know in the comment section how y'all.
And that final demand brings the whole story back to where it started. If the league is going to speak loudly about fan conduct, speak loudly here. If analysts are going to treat Fever fans as a league-wide issue when they are accused of bad behavior, then apply that same standard when a Fever fan says she was spit on. If media members are going to chase non-basketball accountability, then ask why a physical allegation in the crowd is not getting the same oxygen. This is not about pretending Fever fans are perfect. No fan base is perfect. New attention brings good fans, casual fans, toxic fans, bandwagon fans, and people who care more about fighting online than watching basketball. That is true in every sport. But the standard cannot be, every bad thing near Caitlin Clark proves something about her audience, while every bad thing done to her audience becomes invisible. That is how trust breaks. Fans can handle bad news, they can handle criticism, they can handle rules they do not love. What they cannot handle is a league culture where the conclusion seems written before the facts arrive. And for the WNBA, this is bigger than one Seattle game. This is about whether the league can survive its own growth, because the product on the floor has momentum, the stars are real. The crowds are bigger, the rivalries are sharper, the money conversation is louder, the attention is finally there. But if every game turns into a referendum on politics, media bias, fan wars, and who is allowed to ask what, then basketball becomes the background noise. That is the danger. Not that reporters ask hard questions, not that fans argue, not that players have opinions. The danger is that the league becomes more addicted to controversy than competition, and once that happens, everybody loses. The players lose because their performances get buried. The fans lose because every game becomes a culture war battlefield. The league loses because new viewers came for the electricity and instead get exhausted by the drama. So now the choice is pretty simple. Was this just another ugly night in a heated season, or is this proof that the WNBA needs one clear standard for fans, media, teams, and everyone with access to the game? Drop your take in the comments, hit like if you want the same rules applied to everybody, and subscribe if you are tired of watching the basketball get buried under everything except the basketball.